Good morning, afternoon, everybody. It's Deirdre Fay. I've been talking to a lot of people who are going through a lot of relational difficulties, and I wondered if that was happening for you as well. I mean, no big surprise, right? We're all in this lockdown, slowly venturing out, taking a step or two out, but most of the time we're with ourselves or with other people in very close proximity, and that provides a pretty ripe environment for stuff to come up. Certainly it's easy for us to get triggered. I guess it's also top of mind because that's the subject that I'm teaching about in the Transformational Academy this month. Every month we have a different topic, and this month we're looking at identifying and changing core relational patterns. It's such a big subject, so I can't go into a huge amount of it, but take a look at what in you gets activated, right? And then notice what the impulse is. For most of us, and certainly this is with the clients I work with, the coaching groups I teach, most people, when something happens in a partnership, what happens is we say, you're the problem. You're the one who needs to change. Or if you weren't like this, then I wouldn't feel like this, right? It's that we're pointing the finger over here. Understandable, from our point of view. It's we feel like we're clean around it, maybe, or it's really their problem. It's the hardest thing in the world. I'm looking for my pad paper here, is to look at ourselves. And as I was talking to somebody just the other day, which is why I'm drawing on my pad here, I thought of it that this person was pretty much caught, understandably so, this is what we do, in the pattern. So let me see how I can describe it. In it, this person was saying, growing up, remember how I talk about these little time capsules of experience that are laid down in here? This person said, growing up, my parents, I had two parents, they weren't connected to me. They didn't care about what I felt like. So they would be, they just didn't deal with what my feelings were. So this person said that was going on now. Now here, in this time and space, this person is involved in a relationship with the same issues. When this person, with a nice jaunty hat, deals with circumstances, the partner doesn't tend to his feelings, and he's upset about that. And he wants this person to be tending to his feelings, to validate his feelings. So, what we're looking at is first, he has to recognize that the fact that, or the memories or the laid on the imprint, let's call the imprint of the relationship, the parents not caring about his feelings back then, is what is making it so complicated now. And this person is wanting his needs and his feelings to be met in this relationship in the same way that he wanted it met back then. That makes sense, right? Don't we all want that? But the problem is, this person, the partner, doesn't always want to deal with his hurt feelings. This person wants to have a mature relationship, a relationship of connection of two adults to each other, where it's not just about the hurt and the woundedness. Okay, makes sense, right? You guys, this is making sense to you? So what has to happen is we have to track it back, and we have to look at where there are two things you really want to look at. How do other people react to us? So the O stands for others. How do others react to me? And then we want to look at how the reaction that I'm having to myself. Right. So these two things are happening separately. This person is not paying attention to me, so therefore I'm having responses around that. That triggers off something. But the reaction inside, that the reaction going on inside of me, we can think of it as almost like the vertical axis. Not just the vertical axis to spirit or to the great mother below, but it's all the many different parts inside that are also in there. So we have to look at what are those reactions going on inside and how do I be with that? Now remember, some of you have heard me talk about this, and I'll do it again. The developmental task of the child is that you, as a child, here, I would have had a parent who took care of my needs and cared about me, right? That's absolutely what a child should have had. And when a child does have that, that's what makes life better. Now, what happens there is, as we grow up, we're growing up in age, we didn't have those needs met. Now we're still wanting and needing to have those needs met, right? Doesn't that make sense? We're still wanting them, but there's a different developmental task. When we're an adult, our developmental task is to be attuned inside of ourselves, right? This is how I often draw it, right? That if we didn't have what we needed tended to back here, down here, or whatever those needs might have been, we build a self on top of it. And then as an adult, in this here and now, we need to build a bridge into this inner world to, I wish I knew how to draw better, to make contact here. All the stuff that's been stuffed down. And this is the stuff that the research tells us is unformed in words. We don't have the words to describe it. It's more like I talk about sensations or pulsatory energies, what Susan Oposian calls it, or vitality affects is Dan Stern's word for it. Felt experience is what Eugene Genlin called it. We have to touch into that instead of thinking about it and just having a thought or a concept about it. We have to literally drop in, feel, and sense, and let this organize itself in its own way. And that's harder. This is what, when we're saying my parents didn't, my family members didn't care about my feelings, this is what we're trying to get met now as an adult. We're here, we're saying you should, saying to my partner, you should attend to this so that I get my needs met. But there's such a recipe for complications because we're an adult. We need to be able to stay inside our own self system and make contact with everything inside of us. And from that, make contact out here with another person. So this is all stuff from the past. It's in the, it gets so confusing. It's not 100% true what I'm saying here. All this stuff is undigested stuff. It's actually better to use this here. Sorry, you guys, as I think my way through it. All this is in here. This is the past here. And we're here. We're here in the now. And this is where the current relationships happen. The current relationships don't happen on this level. This is all the past. This is our undigested material, our time capsules. This is what we have to access. But then you have to access here. So there's two things that go on. You, me, I'm in this too. It's like all of us. I have to be connected to all of this, do the work I need to do in here so that I can have a relationship here with intimate partners, non-intimate work relationships with anyone that's satisfying and nurturing and nourishing. Um, some really great people. Douglas Sharp. Hey, Douglas, you're saying you're using Frank Corrigan's DBR to make contact with the roots of these parts of yourself. Perfect. Yeah, Frank is fantastic work. The deep brain reorienting, fantastic work. And that is perfectly a way to undo some of the reactivity down here, right? Absolutely true. I'm so glad you're working with them. Andrea is saying such hard work. Thank you for helping those of us doing this work. Thank you for giving access to words and understanding. I'm so glad, Andrea. As you can see, it was just a little earlier in the video, I was struggling with how to put it all in frames, but that's what's happening. We have to have this contact with ourselves so that we can then be in relationships in the way that we want. And having a good therapist is a really important thing if you have it. Nick is saying, what does one do with this stuff in the past? How do you process it? Oh, that's a great question. Nick, that's a great question. And let's see, there's multiple levels to that too. I wish I was going to say that there was an easy way, but one of the main things is to be able to sit back, notice, like, oh, I'm reactive. Like that's the RY axis is here. I have to check out, what am I reactive to? How do I sit with that? What are the thoughts I'm having? What are the feelings I'm having? What are the body sensations? Can I then slow down, pause, and attend to that? Can I pause and attend to that and be with that? Can I, and some of you have heard me say this many times, is that really what we're trying to do is break down life. That sounds sort of weird, right? Doesn't it? But we're trying to break down the mechanics of life so that all the thoughts, all the feelings, all the sensations I'm having, that I can take either one or all of them and let them rise, crest, and fall. I want to let them run through their course. So this thought, which is often a faster moving thing, can usually move through quickly. Feeling takes a little bit longer. It's a little more concretized in the body, and sensations take a lot more time. So how do I do that? How do I let myself move through every little rise, crest, and fall to let it move through? So that's how we process it. So the first piece of it is, can I be in touch with it? Can I feel it, sense it, attune to it in me? And then notice all the different, there might be meanings around it, associations, but fundamentally the building blocks are the different thoughts that I might having, the feelings I'm having, and the sensations. That's a really good place to start. When I have those and begin to sort them out, I begin to make sense of it. And then what we see is actually this is happening on a hierarchy. Thoughts are faster, feelings are more encrusted, and sensations are much more in the body. That this might have a rapid fire, feelings are going to be slower, and sensations are going to be often much slower to move through. So we have to learn how to sense into what's it, chunked into that, break it down, and then ride the different waves of it and find our way through it. I hope that's helpful, Nick. I'd love to hear, and anybody else, to see if that was helpful. Thank you, Andrew. You're saying it's so helpful. Good. Always a relief to hear, but I'd like to hear from you to know, because breaking it apart is so important so that we can actually start living in our body fully. Yeah. Oh, yay, Nick. So glad that it was super helpful. That's a thrill. Questions like that, I like to, take them apart and make them accessible and make sense of them. And this is actually the stuff that we talk about in the academy, which is the group that I do the teachings and working with people for professionals. Pam is saying the visuals are so helpful. I'm glad. I know they help me too. They help me sort it through. I wish I was just a linear person, but I'm not. And then, if any of you are interested, this is what we work with in the safely embodied learning community for people. Whoops! I just put the wrong link in there. For people who are working on their own personal stuff, if you wanted to join us there. dfa.com is not self. Maybe we should rename it. Would be good. Karen Ann is asking a great question. How are you differentiating between feelings and sensations? In the Becoming Safely Embodied skills group, we actually go through that a lot. So people make the difference between what they are and what they're not. I just posted that link in there. It's hard because we mush them all together, feelings and sensations. But sensations don't really have the same kind of name to it, right? Feelings are something that we sometimes clump together as we construct ourselves around it. And there's a whole in the academic literature. There's lots of conversations about what are feelings and the different kind of feelings, and it gets a little messy. But the feelings that we have, let's see if I can be really simple about it. There are things that evoke an emotionality to it. Sensations can be pure. They're simple. They don't have much contact to it. Like if something's jiggling inside, or if something's pulsing, what happens is we hear pulsing and we have associations to it that we attach to it, and that's what makes it a little bit ricochetty, if that's a word there. I'm not even sure. Douglas, you're asking good stuff. What about breath work? Breath work is perfect and so important. And, having lived in an ashram for years and been a meditator for 40 years or so, totally so important to be able to do it, to be able to help both our feelings hold and contain them, let them move through, let them have some space inside, whatever. There's plenty of feelings, and they're all in both my Becoming Safely Embodied book, the manual, the attachment book, and I'm also coming up with a new book coming out, Becoming Safely Embodied, which isn't a manual, but for everybody. So let me think if there's anything else. Am I missing anything, you guys? Let's actually do a little bit of a breath work right now, just to end. Just notice how your breath is moving. You don't need to change it. You don't have to have it be different. Just notice the way that it is. And what happens if you lengthen it a little bit? Like on the inhalation, just lengthen it just a tiny bit more, not forcing anything, just opening up to a tiny bit more breath. And then let it go. Right. And what happens if at the top of the inhalation, you hold it just for a small breath? So you breathe it in, just softly, and then let it go. Let it roll through. And you're just noticing. Just noticing. And what you might want to do then is notice what happens. Is there a difference when you lengthen the breath and hold it at the top of the inhalation? Lengthen the breath and hold it slightly and gently at the bottom of the exhalation. These are powerful ways, right? There's a waterfall breath I talk about where you bring all the breath in and just let it roll over and fall down. No effort, just fall over like the waterfall rolling over the top of the ridge. Just bring the breath in, let it go. Just let it go. I have a ton of videos and audios about different kinds of breath that you can use. Interesting. I feel myself a little calmer. Thank you so much. Who asked for that? Oh, that was you, Douglas. Great. Thank you. I actually found myself having a different piece. So thanks, you guys. Any questions? let me know. I'm always glad to follow up and continue the discussion. So, peace to you. Lots of love and blessing as we all navigate this world that we're in right now.